This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Catherine Shen. From opera to bluegrass, Connecticut musician Charlie Widmer has pretty much done it all. He's now the Connecticut State Troubadour, an official state position devoted to music education and community. Today, we'll hear about his journey from becoming a global sensation overnight to nurturing the local music scene right here in Connecticut. Charlie grew up in a musical family. I started our conversation by asking him how he first got introduced to music.
I grew up originally around music that it felt like my earliest memories of music of what I jokingly say is divorce music. You know, like the earliest stuff was like my mom had like that independent woman stuff, that early Mary J. Blige, like I don't need no man, I'm going to be good on my own. And my dad's music was more like baby come back, you know, and it was like I'm so sorry, you know. And so I actually didn't have a huge affinity for music very early on until I was about 8 years old. And my stepfather had come into our lives, and I remember very clearly him going through my mom's CD collection. And again, she only listened to like the stuff that would build her up, you know?
Sure.
And now as an adult, I understand what she was doing. And so he's going through the collection, and he goes like, here's a Ray Charles CD. Have you heard of Ray Charles? And I'm like, I don't know who that is. And he's like, oh, well, we'll listen to that. And have you heard, this is Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. Do you know this album? No, I don't want to listen to it. And he made us listen to Inner Visions, and he put it on in the car, and I was complaining, and this is old people music, yuck,
As you do.
you know, being a kid, so you turn off this old people music, and then Golden Lady came on, and I completely went quiet, and I was just like, who is this? How did he do this? What is he doing? And can I hear more? And so Stevie Wonder is by far the anchor for me musically, you know. So after that, then it opened up my whole world to soul music and other artists, and then eventually got pulled into hip hop music especially. And but yeah, in my household, that was the original music. And once I got a taste of what I was into, it was no turning back.
Well, it sounds like it was a lot of curiosity that drew you into his music. But what was it? Was it a note? Was it what he was singing, or what was it about that song?
You know, I've listened to that album like 400 times, maybe more in my life. I love it so much, and specifically that song, out of nowhere, starts with this piano part that's just like floating in the air, and it just feels like you're just gliding, and all of a sudden he digs into the keys, and the visuals of the lyrics, like all of this stuff about looking in your eyes, you know, feeling your hand, you know, a touch of rain and sunshine, I mean, the flowers grow, all of these visuals. And then especially because Stevie's such a brilliant musician, he doesn't ever just stay in one place. So he keeps modulating and modulating and modulating and modulating and building and going higher notes. And I was just in complete awe. I think that like hearing something like that, I'd never heard a musician who was communicating so honestly. And that was really exciting to me, because whatever he was speaking straight to me. It felt like I was who he was talking to, and he was trying to say, there's this magic in the world. That's how it felt.
Well, I think oftentimes when we talk about music, it's something that transcends barriers, whether you are what we think of being a musical person,
Right.
or if you are familiar with any of the music, and it feels like by having exposure to that song, it gave you a dream you didn't realize that you had, because
1000%.
technically you had a later start compared to other musicians, right?
Absolutely.
Because you didn't start performing until you were in high school. So
Yeah.
tell us how that started, and because it sounds like you fell into it by accident, really.
Absolutely. I mean, it really was, you know, I started playing guitar at 12 because, you know, I had this best friend of mine who's still a great musician who now lives in New York, named Gannon Farrell. And Gannon was a brilliant guitarist at 12. I mean, you know, he played like a 65-year-old man, even though he was 12. And, you know, I thought kid math, 12 years old, he started at 6. I'm 12. By 18, I'll be a nasty blues guitarist. And it just didn't work out that way. But it started to introduce me to all kinds of musical people. And in that process, you know, I would sing a little bit, but it was always just like for fun and never performing anywhere. And then I started talking to a girl, and I had this crush on this girl in high school, and she was a triple threat. She was, she could dance, she could sing, she could act. She was an incredible performer. And she convinced me to audition for the musical my junior year and said, well, we can hang out. And I was like, that's a great appeal. And everybody kept saying, since it's Grease, there's a good chance I could get Duty. He plays guitar and sings those magic changes. So I said, best case scenario, I get a supporting role. Worst case, I'll be, in the, on the ensemble. And I'd never done a musical. And so I went into this audition. I met my now wife in the room of the audition from across the room, talked to her, walked into a room, and I remember I'd never performed her audition before, and I sang Lean on Me. And I remember I'd never had good low notes. I still don't. I don't really have low notes. And so that song starts in C, sometimes in our lives, and I was struggling to really get those notes out. So the guy's, I'll sing it with you. He's playing the piano and stuff. And when I jumped up the octave, he snapped his head and looked at me. I didn't know if it was good or bad, so I just leaned into it. And didn't hear anything for a couple weeks. And then one of my buddies called me and told me what ended up being the life-changing moment for me. He said, you got the lead role. And it was like overnight. Everyone in the whole school was talking about it. It was like a movie. Like everybody, all the teachers are popping out in the hallways as I'm walking by. I didn't know you could sing. I didn't know you could sing. I didn't know I could sing. And so months went by, the anticipation built, and we did our first show. And the place was sold out. I mean, as sold out as could be. They'd sold every single ticket, and my heart was slamming. I was, I had a different path in my life. I didn't think this was going to be it. My heart is absolutely pounding. And we do the first, summer nights in Greece, and we hit that ending note, and we're supposed to be staring out in the distance, and it felt like an eternity between when we stopped and then when the audience erupted. And I was hooked. I was like, okay, I unfortunately have to do this. I have to at least find out what's at the end of this road.
Well, I think a lot of things happen by accident, and it sounds like a happy one.
Yeah.
Fortunately,
this was one of those good ones.
And can you remember that, or take us back to that feeling on stage? Because I often wonder about the stage as a place where people realize that's what they wanted to do, whatever that stage looks like. And it's oftentimes people that you don't expect to enjoy being on the stage.
For sure.
Were you surprised that you enjoyed that feeling?
Well, I think that, I was already kind of a class clown and was, in a respectful way. I mean, my mom taught me a lot of manners, so I knew not to ever pop off or do anything that would get me kicked out of class or anything. So I learned early on that, if you can make jokes, but you can make jokes that the teachers appreciate too, then you can kill the whole time,
right.
And so I really always had a dream from like 12 or 13 years old on to be I wanted to be a comedian secretly. But I was way too scared to do that in front of people. And I didn't know how to write bits or structure things. So when I got on the stage and I got the response I did, it was kind of like twofold. It felt like one was like, oh, this isn't as scary as I thought it would be, but also the interesting thing about being a singer is you can amplify what your instrument can do, but you can't decide what your instrument is. So as a tenor, my voice is what it is. My range is what it is. And without trying, I was getting a reaction from people that was so big that it made me go, maybe I have something here that I'm supposed to be taking care of. And I'm supposed to be trying to foster. So for me, it felt like I found my purpose. And more so than anything, I'd been looking for that my whole life because I wanted to be the hero, I wanted to be that kid in every single movie I watched. Like, I wanted to be the quarterback, so I tried football and was terrible. I wanted to be the soccer star, so I tried soccer and I was terrible. I wanted to be something. I wanted to have my place in the world. And when I got on that stage and from gut instinct made that response happen, then I was like, oh, then I found it.
And it's great to hear that you found it because you were trying.
Yeah.
You weren't waiting for that moment.
No, I mean, I've always felt that, I've always believed that all of us have a purpose. That's something that I bought into at a very young age. I was raised in a Christian household, and my mom was always really firm on us about our values and the things that we do and how we come off in the world. And so much of, Christianity falls into the idea of, we all were put here to do something, so you better find it. And I was looking for that thing. I was really desperate to be of use. And when that happened, I didn't know that it would turn into what it has half my life later. It's literally half my life later now. I'm in a place where I just could cry constantly. It's too emotional.
Well, I mean, we do a lot of crying on here, mostly happy tears. I like
absolutely.
to share, and also because you brought your guitar with you today. So could you play something for us?
Absolutely. This song that I'll do for you is a tune that I wrote. It was the first song that I wrote completely on my own, and it was the first thing that kind of poured out of me. I was already a singer. I was in school for classical music. I was pushing against that because even though I was singing classically, I didn't want to be an opera singer. I wanted to be my own thing. And I was in a hip-hop soul band with a bunch of my college friends called Suburban. My brother was the MC in it. It was a really magical point in our lives, my brother being a few years younger than me and us getting to share the stage so much for 5 years. And this was probably a year into it. My dad and I went to Italy, first time I'd ever been there, and it was just him and I for this trip. And I just got hit with this melody I couldn't get out of my head and literally was like, I'll be right back. And the whole song came out in one shot, which almost never happens. Long story short, my band and I are in some sort of an argument. We need more music. And I was scared to show them my songs on my own. And they said, we need something. And I said, all right, I do have this song that I haven't showed you guys. And I'll perform it for you now. It's a tune called Far Away. Was Sally. Oh, she hurt so badly and dreamed that she'd get far away. And though I never met her, I cannot forget her. I see her in my dreams every day. And all I know is I can't be without you in my head. And every time I close my eyes and lay alone in my bed is when we go far, far away, just you and me. We go far, far away, just you and me. We go far, far away, just you and me. We go far, far away, just you and me.
Charlie Widmer is the Connecticut State Troubadour. This is Where We Live. We'll be right back. This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Catherine Shen. Today, we're hearing some songs from musician Charlie Widmer. He's the Connecticut State Troubadour, an official position devoted to music education and community. Let's dive back into the conversation. It's so hard to imagine you not performing or not being on this musical stage, but
Sure.
You were not planning on doing this. You had thoughts of having a career in science. So What was that process like in terms of that was what you were thinking you were going to do,
Right.
But music, of course, is always in your background.
It was a very hard decision to make. And I think it was also very, when your life is in front of you at 16 years old, 17 years old, 18 years old, even when you have purpose.
I mean, we talk a lot about how it's when you're asking a kid, really, and at that age, what you want to do for the rest of your life. That's a really big and heavy question.
1,000%. And it's something I try and remind a lot of my students about, when we talk about these things that you don't have to have it all figured out, even though it feels like at that moment everybody makes you feel like you do. And so that's how it felt. When I told my parents, that I was even thinking about it, it was a massive argument, massive fight. It was like I told them I'm joining the circus or something. It was like, what do you mean? I'd won 5th place in the state of Connecticut for a science project my sophomore year of high school and won a scholarship to Quinnipiac University and all of these things that were it looked like there's my path. But when music stepped in and that strong feeling of purpose stepped in, it blew up certain relationships for a time. I remember telling my mom, because she just didn't want to see me become destitute or something, I remember saying to her, look, I know this sounds crazy. I know I can't read music. I know I am just stepping into this world, but just come to the first show. And if you think I don't have something to offer, then I'll listen. But just come watch me. And I mean, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but yeah, she bought in and she supported me from then on.
Well, you just reminded me, and thanks for sharing that, because I think most of the time parents come from a place of love.
1,000%.
Right? They don't want you to starve.
No, and as an adult, I mean, I think that, again, as you get older, you look back and you say, I so get what they were trying to do.
Right.
They were just trying to stop me from being potentially reckless. And I tried every step of the way to show that I was working as hard as I could.
Well, it's funny because the story reminds me of my own parents, where you think this idea of going into journalism, perhaps it's a little bit more...
solid, right?
Not really.
No, not at all. It's a hustle industry as well.
Not
you
really.
guys hustle. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had to, similarly so, where I had to convince my parents, like, this is a legit thing. And of course, being an Asian young woman, that's a different sort of nuance for them. Mm-hmm. And I remember having similar conversations where I think I can do this, but I need some time, and I need to get myself those opportunities. And I think when my parents saw that, oh yeah, this is like a thing, it was a lot easier. Right, but it took a long time.
Right, and it takes a lot of sacrifice. I mean, I think people, the amount journalism similar to what music is, like, you have to start at the ground floor. There is no cheat code. There's no way around what is sometimes, maybe the wrong word is demeaning, but work that doesn't feel connected to your heart and your purpose completely. Like, sometimes you just have to do work to make money, and sometimes you have to do work just to maybe even just get a resume credit that you hope to God is going to be the thing that gets you to the next thing. Because, but isn't that work, right? I mean, like, what we get to do is like a joke compared to what some people have to do for work. And some people spend 80% of their day in abject misery. And I mean, the way I think about it is, 20% is not that fun, it's certainly better than 80%.
I mean, I just got to listen to you sing. And
that's very nice of you.
Well, and I think kind of building on what you were sharing about how you do have to start from the ground up, and you were trying. You weren't waiting for that moment, because I think opportunity does come to those who are continuously doing the hustle. Right. You're learning skills along the way. Mm-hmm. And I imagine you're certainly also grappling with challenges like rejection and receiving tough feedback. What was that like for you?
It depends on the ones, right? Because I mean, we all have, I heard a absolutely beautiful quote that said, to live a life so full that when you look down, you're covered in scars, but you're still alive, is kind of, I think, the equivalent of how it is to have a career where you have to lead with your dreams and your faith and in yourself and in anything, right? So, I mean, it helps sometimes to have a higher power, but it's not the only way, but having faith in your abilities and pushing yourself and just not settling, like, it's still not good enough, right? I mean, I'm beyond honored to be in the position that I'm in now and all of these things, but like, my aspirations, I still have more climbing to do. And so, at 16 to start the journey, and then at 17 to start auditioning for colleges, and then to get rejected from every single school I auditioned for, and then to start gen eds at WestCon and feel like my life is spinning out of control, and then to re-audition at WestCon with a new voice teacher in my corner who became my music mentor and still is, Eric Trudell, this brilliant musician out of Hamden, and has become one of my best friends. And then to get into the school, but only get in as a Bachelor of Arts because they didn't want to give me the full degree, and then to re-audition so I could be a Bachelor of Music, and then to climb the thing and then get all the way to the point where I got to sing at my own graduation and have that honor, and then to go into the world and your resume is suddenly worthless. And I remember that first audition when I came in with all these awards and everything, it felt so cocky, and they looked at it and they said, this is great, this is awesome. What have you done in the real world? I said, well, I just did 4 years of school and I climbed from nothing to something, and then, oh, no, this doesn't count. And then to have to rebuild again. I mean, I think that every time you experience a certain level of rejection, it's a choice as to how you take it. And for me, every time was, okay, I took it personally, almost always. And then I would say, how can I let this make me better? And where am I supposed to be going? If it's not that, then what's next?
And I wonder if it's easier to think back today, where realizing all the rejections and all the challenges, whatever they may be, are stepping stones to your next thing, whatever that thing is, right?
1,000%.
Because when I fast forward after you graduate college, you've gone through all of that.
Yeah.
You're beginning your journey as a professional musician,
Right.
but it really, I feel like oftentimes you have that moment. I think every person says, oh, you just need someone to say yes that first time, but
Right.
you still need that person to
Right.
show up,
Right.
right? And it sounds like for you, could have been Switzerland's Got Talent,
Right.
which I was not expecting.
Yeah, I'll say it in the Swiss German, which is die größten Schweizer Talente, right? And so at that
Appreciate
point,
it.
I couldn't understand any German, and my father had submitted me without my knowledge a video of me performing with the choir at WestCon. We had this huge 120-piece choir, and I got to sing this gospel solo that I don't even have the footage of at 21 or whatever. I got this awesome solo, and I got to belt out this crazy high note at the end of it, and it went amazing, and it was great footage. So he just submitted. He never told me. And I started my senior year, and he said, you might get an email, you might get an email, you might get an email, with my dad living in Switzerland, And so so I did get this email, and I said, well, unfortunately, I just started my last year of school. Like, I can't come and do like pre-screenings. And they said, oh, no, you don't have to. We'll just tape you. So just come. I'm like, are you serious? So me, my dad, my brother flew with me over there. So if he must have been 17 or something, And so we flew to Switzerland. And I couldn't have done it without my brother, to be honest. My brother and I have always been very close. We really understand each other very well. And what Fred knows, my brother Fred, is that when I'm nervous, I get in my head. I get really in my head. And so we got there and we spent the whole day there, 8 a.m., and I didn't perform till 8 p.m. So all day long, we're like cameras around us and all of these weird characters, doing their like things and warm-ups and all this stuff, and gymnasts doing upside down flips and stuff because it's, a variety show. And my brother never stopped talking. He just kept me out of my head, just hey. So I certainly didn't think I was going to get the reaction I got. If you've seen that footage, I almost start crying immediately because I did not think I was going to get a standing ovation or any of that. And the whole thing, to be honest, felt maybe like a setup because every other singer bombed. Like really, it was like the kind of thing where they got the red X and the whole thing. So I'm like, did they just bring an American here so they can just like rip me, And then it ended up being one of the most magical experiences of my entire life.
Una furtiva lagrima negli occhi suoi spuntò. Quelle festose giovani invidiar sembrò, che fu cercando io vo, che fu cercando io vo,
Another accidental stage. I'm sensing a theme here.
Almost over, including the bluegrass, which we'll get to.
Right, absolutely. And what do you think that experience gave you in terms of perspective? Because it's something that's unexpected. but it's a stage perhaps in some ways that may not be as random as you think it would be.
Right.
Perhaps when you're thinking about it today. But what did that experience give you?
Well, I think that up until that point, I won a couple competitions with that song. So I knew that if I was all the way locked in, if I committed all the way to my performance, and again, that was when, when the purpose kicked in. It was because I realized when I gave in to the music all the way, if I was playing a character or any of those things, if I truly committed, it was like the air stood still. I could like pull people in. I could feel that energy. I could grab it. I could hold on to it. And so we flew to Switzerland, the whole thing. And when I got on that stage, I had my first ever full out-of-body experience where I'm singing, but I am on complete autopilot. I am talking to myself in my head, having these moments where I'm going, oh, they clapped at that. That's good. Oh, well, if they like that, they're going to love this. Dig in, All right, give it to them now. Feel it. I'm like coaching myself through this. And what that showed me, that moment, really what it unlocked for me was, okay, there's something here that I can't explain, but I have to go further now. I have to commit more, and I need to do everything I can to be the best singer I can be, and I'm still on that journey.
And I want to ask you more about, because you were in the sort of opera and classical music space, which I think you realized that's not really your thing.
Yeah.
But actually, on top of that, or building on that, when it's not something that you are super into, or maybe it's a piece of music or a character you're not familiar with, but you still have to do it. Mm-hmm. What do you do when you have moments like that? Where do you believe in the character? Do you not believe in the character?
Right.
What's that like for you?
You start to, you have to find what anchors the character to you, even if you don't love the character. And I think sometimes that's the beautiful challenge of being in an uncomfortable situation, playing a character that maybe doesn't resonate because, very often, I still feel like an actor. I still love musical theater and opera to the degree that I can, and I still perform in those settings, which is crazy nowadays because it's more limited, but more my own choice. And when you play a character that feels maybe a little bit distant from you, then you get to learn where your limits are actually. If you play an ugly character, then you get to say, well, I guess I have to tap into those parts of myself I don't want to. Like I got to play Tybalt in Romeo and Juliet, and I remember our director trying to get me to really tap into my anger and frustration, and she, I couldn't, I wasn't committing enough, and she knew one trigger point and whispered it into my ear, and then all my castmates were terrified that day. I was so in it that the people on stage were genuinely afraid for their life in those moments because I could so tap into my rage. And then it took me a few months to untap from that. So I think that's the challenge of playing things. And sometimes that's the challenge in life, right? Sometimes there's things you don't want to do, but can you find something in it that recontextualizes it?
Well, and because we're also talking about you working with some of the biggest musicians in the world. Very familiar names, I think, for many people, especially when we think about opera and classical music, which are very specific spaces.
Right.
Could you describe what it was like working in that world? Is it as glamorous as we think?
It's hard. It's hard, and I would say to every person that I know that still does it full time, I give them my most respect, and my whole heart goes out to them constantly in what they do, because the amount of rejection that the average musical theater or opera person goes through is 100-fold what a normal person experiences in their life. And they find a way to recategorize that or repurpose these rooms that feel incredibly uncomfortable for anyone. And so being in that world showed me what real hustle looks like. Being in that world shows me what real self-assurance looks like. being in that world shows me what it really is to be a professional and not make excuses. And that was, and that you don't matter. That was the biggest part, that you are serving something bigger than yourself. And so you better, learn how to fall in line and do so graciously that you can be replaced. And they know that. So, I mean, again, being around these incredibly hardworking musical theater people, and I think then when you add age to it, right? If you're 25 versus 35 versus 45 versus 55, meeting these people of different generations that have been doing it for 30 years, it taught me to show respect and to listen to these people as closely as I could and try and gain something from them, because they're in the hardest industry. I truly think the only harder industry than being either a musical theater or opera person, maybe the next is acting and dance. But realistically, as in that world, you're so easily replaced, and the competition is so fierce, And what really for me was my moment where I said, I'm not gonna keep showing up begging for work anymore. Was when I realized that they will just straight up not cast you because you don't fit the costume. And when a conductor told me that in such plain text, that it's not even whether or not you can sing it, it's not even whether or not you can act well. Sometimes you're 5'7", and the costume was made for somebody who's 5'9" to 5'11". So we have 200 people here today. We'll find one that fits. And that's when, for me, I said, all right, then I'm not going to wait anymore and keep auditioning. I need to go build my own thing, and maybe one day I can go sing an opera at the high levels, and maybe one day I can go do a musical at the highest levels. But I'm not going to wait around until that day comes.
So I have like multifold questions here before I ask you to play a second song.
Yeah.
But because of what you're saying in terms of, there's a very specific space for very specific performers. And I think oftentimes we see sort of the same artists getting all the airplay and the attention and
1,000%.
the stage. And are we starting to see that change where there is enough space in the music scene for all artists to succeed?
I think in the independent scene, there's a lot more room for that. Social media has made a way in which people can build micro fan bases. Fame is not what it used to be anymore, nor does it have the same power that it used to have. But on the highest levels, the reason that it stays so carefully curated is because of the risk they're at. They are under a severe amount of pressure too, and I will never, ever judge a casting director as though I know what they go through. They have to sit there and watch 300 people. They have to put their career on the line every time they cast somebody. That's a huge amount of pressure, and that's before we even talk about how much money it costs to put a show on. Right? Broadway is the most expensive thing in the world. I mean, I remember hearing about budgets like at the Metropolitan Opera. It was like $1 million a day. Like you're you're just setting a pile of money on fire unless you're getting it back. So of course they have to think constantly about who's the star that we can anchor this to. And then you got to just hope that these stars have done enough personal work that they haven't lost their own minds along the way. I mean, by far, it's a business of severe pressure, and you can succumb to it in a myriad of horrible ways. So realistically, it's I commend anyone who's in the industry and making a way, but certainly it's become, maybe the wrong word is more equitable. I wouldn't say it's that, but certainly anybody with $1 and a dream can carve away and maybe make 1,000 fans, and that's kind of enough sometimes.
Well, I'm going to ask you to carve out another song for us here.
Let's do it. All right. Well, so, this song I'm going to do for you is the first song that I wrote with my band On the Trail. We wrote, when I joined the bluegrass world, again, another accidental stumble, which we'll talk about. But when I joined On the Trail, I had a real desire to prove myself as a songwriter, that I had something more to contribute than just guitar and vocals. And so I always tell the story on stage that our fiddle player and one of my best friends since college, Austin Scelzo, he sent a voice memo, and I was teaching lessons, and I had a little gap in between, and he said, "Let's learn this song." It's called, it didn't have a name, I don't think, at the time, and so I said, "Look, I got 30 minutes. Let me see if I could like come up with some words for this melody and see if I could make it into a song you'd sing." And so the best compliment we get for this song is people say, whenever we perform it, is, "God, I hope you can perform that at my funeral." And that is the weirdest compliment we get by far. But it is high praise. It's a tune called Upon the Knoll about escaping to your happy place. Birds and bees that live upon the knoll, the softness of the breeze that spoke within my soul, of loss it speaks to me, but more of where to grow, a home that hearts set far apart exists so beautiful. Take me home to where I belong, no longer wandering, heart full of song, where the birds and bees will sing away the day, peacefully, eternally upon the knoll I lay.
Charlie Widmer is the Connecticut State Troubadour. This is Where We Live. We'll be right back. This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Catherine Shen. Charlie Widmer is a singer and songwriter. He's also our Connecticut State Troubadour. He shares with us the beauty of being in musical education while being a musician himself. To hear the full conversation, make sure to subscribe to Where We Live wherever you get your podcasts. Let's jump back into the conversation. We were talking a lot about you spending a lot of time in the classical music world and exploring different genres.
Right.
And I'm a huge fan when genres collide.
Yeah, me too.
And it's really hard to really genreify like one genre, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely.
And so because you cross those boundaries, you're doing soul, you're doing hip hop, bluegrass. So it's like there's so many. Actually, I want to ask, what are the connections you see with these different genres of music? And they're all music that has really deep roots. Yeah. So are you into this idea of playing music that's much bigger than all of us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're tapping exactly into it. And I would say the one thing, I was doing a songwriting session with this great songwriter out of Alabama about 6 months ago, and he was asking me, what's the picture? Like if you had to say on the trail or like your music, what's the thing? And I was like, I thought about it for a second, and I said, it's truth. I want to fully connect to it myself, and if I fully connect to it and it has or tries to serve a deeper meaning or a purpose, then that's what I want to perform. And so again, that goes back to Stevie Wonder and purpose and all of these things. Like I have always been, my wife will attest to this, I'm a dramatic type of person, I
am so shocked.
Right. Oh, thank you, Catherine. I was, I always, when I was growing up, I was really always very serious, even though I love to joke and all of those things. I've always been tapped into this. I like the movie mindset of these things are serious, these things are real. We have to tap in. We commit to this. Even when I tried to play sports, like again, I'm good for a play or two, and then put me on the bench. You know what I mean? But I'm good for a heroic play or two. But better than anything, I was on the varsity volleyball team and stuff. And my job on the team, to Coach G's credit, was he would give the game plan, and then he would look at me, and I would motivate the team. And it's because I could tap into, we need to lock in right now. This matters. And that's what I do to myself. Every time I get on stage, it's make or break. It is, I am going for it with everything I got. I'm going to exhaust myself. I'm going to wring myself out like a sponge. And when the show is done, there's nothing left. Because I don't know, even as I get older, maybe it's even bigger than that. Now it's because who knows if it's your last one. And if it is my last one, I don't want any regrets.
Well, with that in mind, I think a lot of people, everyone listens to music for different reasons.
Right.
Sometimes just to
Absolutely.
relax, sometimes to get inspired, being in the live audience. I'm sure that energy, you're not just energizing yourself, but energizing your audience.
Right.
With that in mind, do you have any advice or guidance or just any sort of thoughts for our listeners on how to stay curious about music? Because we have so many platforms now to discover music, which I think, to me, that's awesome, because then you have all of these different potentials right at your fingertips. But I also wonder if sometimes that might be even too overwhelming for some.
Well, I think that, now 100,000 new songs are released a day. That's the statistic. 100,000 new pieces of music are released every single day. So that's the amount of saturation is overwhelming in that respect. But it also means that there is an endless potential for finding things that can light you on fire. And for me, I am constantly looking for those pieces of music or those artists that have the same value system to lose myself in their music. In the last couple of years, probably the most important one for me has been a songwriter named Theo Katzman, who is from the supergroup Wolfpack, who, they sold out Madison Square Garden on their own. They're completely independent. They're, each one of them is an incredible a solo artist on their own. Corey Wong being like a figure in electric guitar and all these things. But Theo obviously does not care what anyone thinks. He makes what he's into, and he follows his own gut and has all of these different flavors in his music, and will take vocal risks that, like, sometimes he cracks or something, but he keeps it in the music. And, like, I guess at my age and where I'm at in my career, I'd rather be doing that than playing it safe.
I actually really love hearing a voice cracking.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of love the rawness of a live performance versus like a studio version.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think can you be honest to where you are in time and all of these things? Because in classical music, your job is to try and be perfect, and that pressure is so overwhelming, and that those stages scared the crud out of me. They really did, and they still do to a degree. I get terrified to put a suit on and try and be perfect, because at least in my head, it always felt like maybe the audience was rooting against me. And as soon as I entered the spaces like bluegrass and stuff, like no one wants anything more than to just build each other up, the whole entire community. And that was what really hooked me to staying in that genre.
Well, and do you think that genre, and also just being in music in general, of course, it led you to becoming our state troubadour, which of course we have to talk about today. But what has that been like so far? And do you think all of the things that you did before this moment prepared you for this very different kind of stage?
Yeah, I think, isn't it amazing? I'm sure you have the same thing, is when you look back at certain moments in your life when things really feel like they're coming together, and then we know that's not going to last forever, right? Those feelings
I'm
are
always
forever.
suspicious.
Right,
I'm
you have to.
Yeah, perpetually suspicious.
Yeah, you got to stay on alert. It's because we're hustlers, right? Hustlers stay on alert. And so, this moment in my life, I can so clearly look back and see every single connection and every thread of how it works and what this failure or this experience did for me and what this other one taught me, and how now I can confidently stand in any situation or in any room and just be myself. And just, it's what I said to my wife when I got picked as troubadour, because this whole thing has been overwhelmingly emotional. I mean, I've cried so many times and have felt humbled to the point of collapsing, like truly to represent my home on this stage and to get to do it without having to pretend to be somebody else is really, I just can walk into a room and say, just trust yourself. Because I never fed the wrong things. My first teacher destroyed my ego. Eric was responsible in reconstructing who I was, Eric Trudell, because I needed it. At 16, you get a lead role. I mean, it fed the wrong things. I thought, I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be a superstar. I'm going to walk into rooms and people are going to, oh my goodness, and this whole thing. And then when I got rejected from all those schools, it began the reconstruction. But when I worked with him, I tell the story all the time, but he got so mad during one of our lessons, and he snapped at me and he said, "Hey, remember, you don't matter. It's not about you. It's about the music. In 100 years, you'll be dead, and they're still going to be singing these songs. Learn them better."
Are you glad that happened to you early on?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, because I'm so dramatic and so serious about everything all the time, I take all of those moments very seriously. I take them all, my brother said it once that a smart man learns from his own mistakes and a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And, that's been what I've tried to do. I want to be as wise as I can be. So I read a lot, I listen a lot, and if I hear something, I add it consciously to my value system and say, now this is part of how I carry myself. Because, I don't know, is there a purpose for all of this, right? If there is a purpose for all of this life and all of this stuff, my idea is that we're supposed to leave better than when we entered.
And because you mentioned just now that now you're in a place where you can walk into a room and say, trust yourself. Was that something that you always carried with you? Was the trust level always the same, or did it grow more or grow less during your career?
I would say it's still, my sleep is horrible these days. I constantly,
who's sleeping great these days,
right?
let's be honest.
Oh, right. Absolutely. We have a lot of reasons to be sleepless, but, I still put so much pressure on myself and I still doubt myself. And I think that's part of the process. I think you have to be unsure. That, because that keeps you on alert. It keeps you prepared. It keeps you pushing and checking on yourself and saying, I'm sure LeBron James is confident that he's a great basketball player, but he's also confident because he's putting 8 hours in a day. And that's kind of the combination. I'm trying still to teach myself to, without saying it out loud, those pieces that might make you sound like a narcissist, right? But to say, like, you got this. You can do this. Believe in yourself. You can do these things. But it ebbs and flows. And so for anybody out there that might be listening and, has those days where you just don't believe in yourself, like, welcome to the club, right, Catherine?
No, for sure. And I think it's one of those things where you do kind of have to be your own cheerleader sometimes because
Constantly.
No one else is going to do it for you. And you mentioned teaching because you're also a music educator.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a parallel between these two roles, being an educator and the State Troubadour?
That's the best part of being troubadour was that, I got to lay out a plan for what I hoped to do. And with that plan, part of that, I have almost like threefold. Like one is being an artist, yes, and sharing my music and doing that stuff, which is awesome. Like that's still, and that's part of that doubt and in and out stuff, right? But the other two parts were education and advocacy. And so the education part of it was because I've been a teacher since I was, 20. That was like literally my first job was teaching at Guitar Center in Danbury. My buddy got me the job and it was, and so I've taught kids from 5 all the way to adults of 85. And it was a surreal experience to sometimes be lecturing to a 55-year-old, like, really giving them like a, hey, this is important. You need to commit, like that kind of thing. Or like, that's not how life works, to somebody who's 35 years older than me or something, and, but yeah, being an educator for me, my whole goal with being an educator is to try and just help people be less hard on themselves. Like, it's not about being perfect. Like, it turns out no one has it figured out. It turns out everyone's pretending. And I think it's time we take the masks off. Like, when I deal with kids, I don't talk to a kid any differently than I'm talking to you right now. If I talk to a 5-year-old, because they need one person to level with them. They need one person to look them in the eye and say, that's sick, the thing about Pokemon, yes, and, right? Like, we can have a cool conversation, a serious conversation even, about life and values, because so many people are just so hard on themselves.
Well, listen, someone had to write that Pokemon song.
Right? I mean, that song it slaps. You know?
Yeah, no, it's cross-generational. So let's talk about a success story there.
You know, I got to catch them all, man. I mean, these people are catching all the billions. That's what they're doing. Oh, my goodness.
There you go. And it's funny because I tell young journalists as well, is like, I'm learning forever is kind of how I see this.
And, you know, in the classical world, and that's the thing as a singer, no matter what level I get to as a singer, I'm never going to be who my classical heroes were. I'm never going to touch Luciano Pavarotti. I'm never going to sing like that. And that's my goal. Like, even if it's not the same genre, I want to break open my heart so other people can feel it.
Well, thank you so much for breaking your heart for us. Yeah. And I know we can go on forever, but I have to ask you to do a last song for us.
Well, I'll do the song that led to all of this. I'm sure of it. This song is a song that I wrote with On the Trail. Originally, well, it's a song that I wrote and brought to my best friends in On the Trail. And I wrote it in 2020 when the world was broken. And I wrote it as a song dealing with the weight of my dreams and feeling like I was being crushed by the weight of my dreams. And since then, this song, my version of it has gotten over 100,000 streams. It's played internationally in Switzerland and Italy and France and on radio stations. And then On the Trail's version of it got picked up in 2025 by Sirius XM. We we hit number 3 on the top 100 charts. We made money on music. What? Right? I mean, weird. This song is for anybody out there who has a super negative voice in their head that they just sometimes wish they could tell to shut up. This song is called What Do I Need with Love?
Of these times and all the things you dreamt of being weighed down. No, friend, it doesn't seem like life is working out the way you dreamt it when you look around. The promises of better days don't kneel the way they should. What's the use in going on when life ain't all that good? And he said, what do I need with love when I can't understand the love is standing in my face? What do I need with dreams when I can't even find the answers to the ones that get me running right in place?
That was Charlie Widmer. He's the Connecticut State Troubadour. Find more information about his work by visiting charliewidmermusic.com. I'm Catherine Shen. Today's show is produced by Tess Terrible. Our technical producer is Dylan Reyes. Download Where We Live anytime on your favorite podcast app. And thank you all so much for listening.